Oh, welcome back. It is a kick, everybody. Welcome to Kicking with the Rickens, redefining retirement. I'm your co-host, Doug Turnbull. Jerry Ricken, licensed insurance professional, is normally with us. He's on most shows, but today, sitting in alone in the big chair. Although not alone, we're together, but
never alone.
The two. Investment advisor representative Heidi Ricken-Provost here. Heidi, making St. Louis shine. How you doing today?
Hey, it's a beautiful day. You know what? I have to say, it's been a rough spring because we have had the most gorgeous weather every single day during the week. And then every weekend it's been raining and disgusting. So I'm kind of over it. But today is so beautiful that when I was walking in the office, this other woman was like, isn't it hard to work today since it's so bright outside? And I'm like, yeah, but at least I have a window to look at the sunshine, you know? Got to look at the bright side of things.
She's trying to angle for maybe early release or something like that. Well, and look, so we just missed each other recently in Boston by a little bit. I
know, right?
A birthday for my wife, anniversary for us, trip to the Azores, which was amazing. All right, island chain off of Portugal, but in a temperate zone. All right, it was not tropical. Okay, so there was a lot of hiking and not a lot of laying butts on the beach. But we passed through the Boston airport like a day apart, basically, to and from, because you were in Boston for a very important reason as well. The Investing in Women Conference. We talked about it in our past episodes that it was coming up, but now it's come and gone, and you got to be with our Impact Partnership marketing team up there and talking to women in your field. So how was that?
Oh, my God, it was amazing. You know, I think I said this on the Impact media, but I have to say, when you're in a room of 500 plus advisors and they're all female, it's pretty damn powerful. Yes, there were a couple men in the room and we'll still accept them. And we know you guys can be great allies. And we like
love
you
Mike
too.
Macho.
Yeah. However, it was amazing. And being able to communicate with all of these women, I mean, there were like heads of some major companies there that I got to have real conversations with and learn from them, and people who have overcome so many obstacles. One woman was talking about how her first day on the job, they all went out to drinks afterwards. And I mean, she was older. And the club that they walked in, she was the only woman at her company. The club they walked in said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, we can't serve you. You're a woman." It was just like, that was not that long ago. This woman's in her 60s, you know?
Yeah.
But it was just really, really cool to be able to spend time together, learn from each other, and build each other up. Because I think one of the things that also is pretty prevalent is a lot of us female advisors have a hard time building ourselves up or putting ourselves, feeling like we're on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And, you know, you kind of have to be on a pedestal sometimes because we know what we're talking about. We need to make sure that we stand behind that every single day. So I loved my time in Boston and getting to spend time with Alex and Kim, some of our VPs or, you know, chief officers at Impact. It was awesome. And some fellow advisors too. I had a great time and I'm happy to be back and to have learned so much from this experience. And, you know, something I have been stewing on since my conversations there is the market volatility, because this particular session and conference was all about people who work in the securities world. So when things are invested in the market.
Yeah.
And the common theme of almost every single breakout session, lunch, you know, every conversation that I had with a different group of women was, are you guys doing okay? All of my clients have been calling me freaking out about this market volatility. And you know, the common theme was our clients are not okay because of the volatility. And I felt like an abnormal human sitting here saying...
For the first time ever.
I know, right? Dr. Frankenstein's Abby Normal. But, you know, I sat there and I was like, am I the odd man out? Am I the only one that does holistic planning, that puts a plan in place for the future and doesn't just help manage people's money? Because our clients are not freaking out right now because they're matching their risk tolerance. And we go through so many steps to make sure what you're invested in can stand the test of time, because you put your plan together, not for the days that the market is up 50%, you know?
Right.
Because let's be real, when you're making money in the market, it is a slow and steady wins the race type of deal. The big days aren't usually a big upswing in the market. There are a couple that are. Most of the big days that every single person remembers are those days when the market craps all over itself and the volatility comes in place. And all of a sudden, you need to make sure that what you're invested in truly matches your risk tolerance, because your risk tolerance isn't for the wins, it's for the losses, to make sure you feel comfortable at that point in time. So if you're sitting here and the volatility so far this year has had you lose sleep and you're concerned that your money is not going to stand the test of time, now is the perfect time to reach out, because it is never too late to put a plan in place to make sure that your risk tolerance is matching how you're actually invested. That's the most important thing you can do when it comes to your portfolio and how you're planning for the future. So if you're concerned with how your funds are doing, or you just simply can't sleep at night because you don't have a plan for that what if, for that volatility, please reach out to me at rickenfinancial.com, RICKEN, or 314-442-6476, because now is the time. There is no better time than today to make sure that you can stand the test of time, because your plan that you're doing for the future needs to look at least three things, but we'll go over a couple of them. The first is some preservation in times of market volatility. You need to make sure that something you're invested in might be preserved over the course of time. The second is you really need to make sure your income plan is not based on market performance alone. And the third would be taking advantage of some taxes. So, doing tax planning at the appropriate time. And if you've ever listened to this podcast, you have heard Jerry and myself talk about taxes till we're blue in the face. And guess what? You can't get rid of us. We're going to talk about it again today. You know?
Yeah, a great mini series on that right through February and March for sure.
Absolutely. But, at the end of the day, you need to have a plan in place for those what ifs, because your plan isn't for rosy days every single day. Your plan is for the weekends when it rains, and we're not just looking at the sunshine, because we don't know what the future has in store. So that's why we plan for it. So let's really talk about what preservation looks like, okay?
Yes.
Because if you're on the brink of retirement, or you're in retirement, and every single thing you have invested, let's say it's in the S&P 500, okay? It's 100% invested in the market. Well, the market goes up and down every single day, and it's a little inflated by the Mag 5 from the past year, and some of those stocks aren't doing so hot back and forth based upon the tariffs and everything else that happens in our country. And if you're fully invested just in the market, you might be losing money to the point that you can't sleep at night right now. We don't want the 2008-9 to come back and for you to lose 40% of your portfolio. But if you're fully invested and you have no preservation of any kind, and you're not globally diversified to make sure that as one thing goes up, the other goes down, and vice versa. If everything you're invested in is correlated right now, which means they're all related and they're all on the same plane, well, if one of your stocks is losing, that means your whole portfolio is going down, and you need to make sure you have some protections in place. It can start with the proper asset allocation to make sure you are globally diversified. Maybe it's the type of investments you're in. A structured note could be very beneficial to you right now because it has some buffer in there, so that if the market is going to be volatile and we end up on the downside, some structured notes may even pay you in a down market. It could mean having annuities in place for preservation of your asset. No matter what it looks like, every single person's plan is going to be completely different. And I'm not going to say there's some one-size-fits-all plan here. But whatever you do, you need to make sure that you're diversified and able to withstand some loss, on target with your risk tolerance, and not be sitting here fully invested in the market and losing up to 40% of your assets like some people did in 2008.
Right.
When you're on the brink of retirement, that's the most important time to make sure you have some of those preservation tools in your tool belt.
Well, for sure. And I think it depends on the stage of life you're in. It's not a one size fits all strategy in any case. So if you're hearing this right now and you think, hey, I don't know if I'm allocated the right way or not, dial 314-442-6476. Or for our university students that have been listening in, all right, we know it's all about the online part. Here you are listening to a podcast. Go to rickenfinancial.com. So you mentioned the preservation piece and diversification, but you also talked about making sure that your income plan, the second step, is not completely tied to market performance too.
Oh, absolutely. And there are so many people in our industry that think that a dividend-based portfolio is the best way to provide a source of income for you in your retirement. And, maybe in the past that was the case, and it could have been a great resource, and it still is a good resource to have available to you. But if your entire income plan is based on market performance alone, you're probably not going to stand the test of time when the market is volatile. So income planning is so important when you're in retirement because, as we know, Doug, retirement means you don't have a paycheck anymore. You're not working anymore. So you don't have a company just saying, hey, thanks for doing the work. Here's some money.
Yeah.
You have to come up with your own stream of income in retirement, and you need to make sure that that stream of income feels stable. Okay. And I say feel stable because right now, if Social Security is your only income, and you're an American and you read and watch the news, you probably don't think it's that stable. It's probably a little bit more stable than we think. However, you need to make sure your income's going to stand the test of time. So that would mean you have different streams of income that can come in and give you stable income to stand the test of time to take care of your expenses, but also that can take care of inflation as it rears its ugly head in retirement, because the only thing we know is over the course of time, we're going to keep spending a little bit more money. So you got to have some extra streams of income coming in to cover that.
So you can get a paycheck, just not from an employer, right? You set up plans that put out that allotment however it comes there. And of course, like you said, it's not just to pay what your expenses were 10 years ago, but it's to account for that carton of milk or, I don't know, eggs. Even if it's in the short term, although those are correcting, might, take up as they go up in cost too. So what else from income planning and then on to tax planning too?
At the end of the day, you just need to make sure that income plan is going to continue to pay no matter what the market does. So there are a lot of different opportunities available for you out there that are not just a market-based dividend-bearing portfolio. And if you want to chat about them, just give me a buzz and I'd be happy to talk about them and see what might fit into your plan. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not one size fits all. So everyone's going to have a different answer for what that income plan really looks like. But that leads into, okay, the market's volatile right now. And on one of those days when we're down, you look at your portfolio and it might be like, a gut punch.
Yeah.
My portfolio is down and my IRA just lost $10,000 overnight. I look at that as an opportunity when it comes to taxes because the best point in time we can talk taxes is for the future.
Yeah.
And today, because I don't want to sit here and say, last year when we're preparing a tax return, last year you should have done this. You could have done this. So if our taxes are going to be less today, which, by the way, with current tax law, they will be less in 2025 than 2026, as long as no changes are made. But if they're less today, why wouldn't we take advantage of our downed IRAs and convert them to Roth so that any growth in the future will not be taxable as long as you're over the age of 59 and a half and it's been there for 5 years? I think it's a great point in time to do some tax planning. Or what if you have some non-qualified funds? And those are like your typical brokerage accounts, your investment accounts that you already paid tax on that money and you just kind of invested it in the market or wherever. Say some of your stocks are down right now. It could be a perfect time to do some tax loss harvesting. So what you do is you take advantage of those losses, re-enter the market at a lower amount, and you might be able to make some money and then sell at a higher amount, but not pay tax on it because you harvested the loss. So there's a lot of different ways that we could take advantage of this volatility and make it work for us and not against us when it comes to our entire portfolio.
And I just want to say again, in the last several weeks of this recording, or maybe, 3 to 6 episodes ago, go back and there's a whole glossary that Jerry and Heidi have done over the different tax diversification or tax strategies, all right, within this. So check all that out on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, and some of the other podcatchers, or on the podcast page of rickandfinancial.com. But especially all three of these phases you talked about, preserving and diversifying your retirement income plan or tax planning, to me, seem extremely daunting even to hear about, much less try to do on your own. So that's why, again, I just want to stress, folks, it's so important to talk to people like Heidi Ricken-Provost and Jerry Ricken, because there's so many ups and downs. You just explaining, tax loss harvesting. I'm like, you've already explained it to me 3 different episodes, and I'm like, I still have no idea how that works. So I think that's why it's important that people call 314-442-6476 and at least have that opening conversation to see if any of these number of strategies is right for them.
Oh, absolutely. And at the end of the day, listen, this should be easy for you. You should work with someone who helps put together the plan so that all you have to do is work the plan and you don't actually have to do the work to come up with it. We want to make sure that you're fully educated and aware of what's happening and making these decisions with us. However, we can help guide you in that direction without you having to sit down and crunch the numbers on taxes to see if tax loss harvesting makes sense, or do the research on how you come up with a stream of income, or, sit here every single day and lose sleep because you feel like your risk tolerance isn't being matched. That's what we're here for. Take the burden off of you, and let's work together to make sure that you relieve some of your stress for the future.
Well, for sure. At least make a step toward that. So again, go to rickandfinancial.com. Also check out their Facebook page, YouTube page. They have all sorts of content they put up there. Or again, dial in that number in St. Louis, 314-442-6476. Well, I hope that there's sunshine ahead of you this weekend, Heidi. You've definitely brought a lot of sunshine in our lives, talking about such a positive thing in both investing in women and in the future. Again, shouts out to our university students that have been listening to the podcast lately that, Heidi, you got to meet at the Invest in Women Conference, but also some sunshine and just, there's actually hope here despite this market volatility, and hope people buy into that. So thank you.
Absolutely. The light is at the end of the tunnel, and this time it is not a freight train. We got it.
There it is. Well, she is Heidi Ricken-Provost, investment advisor representative at Ricken Financial. And before we go, we have to say, whether it's raining or shining, Heidi, every day
is a holiday
and life is short.
Laugh hard.
And we'll do that right here. Every episode, it comes out every week. Kicking with the Rickens, redefining retirement. I'm your co-host, Doug Turnbull. Jerry Rickens often on these episodes as well. And we'll have everybody in-house here very soon. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you very soon. God bless.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Ricken Financial LLC. Ricken Financial LLC is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Ricken Financial LLC are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Ricken Financial LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Ricken Financial LLC.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.
Tax preparation and tax advisory services are offered through Ricken Financial. These services are not offered by IPW and are not subject to investment advisor requirements. These services referenced are an outside business activity not offered through or supervised by IPW.